What is up, YouTube? Man, I ain't posted a video in the last little bit, and it ain't like me. Normally I'm all over this stuff, but nonetheless, y'all didn't come here to hear me ramble about not posting videos. Instead, I'm gonna bring you one. And I asked on a little poll just the other day. I said, hey, would any of y'all want me to do any tech things when it comes to the high Capas? And for the majority of the votes was said yes. Some of y'all said no. Some of y'all said doesn't matter. So for the guys that did say yes, and gals, I figured I'm gonna start with something really basic. I know a lot of people do not like getting inside when it comes to things in the lower of your TM. When I say it's your TM, that means your high Capa. And what I'm going to show you is going to apply to either an AW, a WE, a TM, basically anything that is high Capa, more or less. Very, very simple to do. Do not be scared to get into these lowers. And when I say the lower, that means anything from the slide down. A lot of people do not like to get into the hammer, mechanicals, safeties, the grip, anything like that. They'll just mess around here with the slide. When it comes to the rod, the outer barrel, the nozzle, things like that, anything that's upper is what most people will get into. Now we're not gonna get into this one because there's nothing wrong with this one, and there's nothing wrong with the lower that I'm gonna use on the other one, which is actually this one. And what we're gonna do is actually what you've seen in the title down there. We're going to change out one of these triggers. Now this is a heat-treated trigger. It actually matches the heat-treated screws right here. Yeah, but this is a TM frame. This is actually, I think, from an EMG or WE or something like that grip, but it's relevant. It's still going to work the same way. And it's very simple. Do not be scared to get inside of these. The only way to learn is actually to get into them and figure out what's going on and try to put them back together. But I'm here to help. So what we're going to do is we're going to change out the trigger. We're not going to change out the whole thing. There's a way. Now this is the ring that it goes on. This is the trigger itself. This is what you'd call a puzzle trigger. Now I know my focus is not going to be worth a crap on this, but it is on this ring, and this will be inside of your grip. Your mag will travel through this. But let's try to put this. So what we're going to do first is the biggest suggestion, trust me, it'll make life so much easier here in a minute, is just go ahead and pull the trigger and have your hammer up. Trust me, you'll thank me here in just a second. So what we're going to do is pull this pin. There's a pin, I have it halfway engaged out so you can see it. It's a pin that pushes through here and which holds on this little section that holds your hammer spring in. Do not be scared to push it out, but what you're going to do is push down on this section. You're going to apply force on this little box area down towards the hammer as you push the pin. It makes it just a little bit easier to push out. And pow, you have it out. Once the pin is out, take it, place it to the side wherever you can so you don't lose your parts. And you're going to remove this section. This is where your hammer spring is. Just going to go ahead and remove that. Later on we can talk about a hammer springs if need be, but that's not what the video is about. Now you remember what I said, pull the trigger? It makes things easier because your hammer is already up. So what you're going to do is lift up this little safety tail, also known as a beaver tail. Now this is one of your biggest issues for a lot of guns, why they're not firing right, but we're not going to talk about this one, but this is known as a shear spring. And it has a few different functions to it, whether it's your safety, your hammer, or your reset. So we'll talk about that later on, or I have one small video over, I think it's here, there you go, over double feeding issues. So if you're having that issue, there's one up in the corner. So what we're going to do, so now that we have those out, we're just going to take these grip screws out on this side, on these two sides. So just going to apply it, remove it here, and again, don't lose your parts. Try to get both of them out. And before you get too far thinking it's going to fall, it will not. There's a Phillips right here that's going to hold this part of the grip on right there. So we're going to take that out as well. So we're going to take our Phillips and remove that screw. And then once our screw is out, we will be able to freely take off our grip. It'll just slide right off. Super simple. You with me so far? All right, cool. Now you remember that ring we was talking about? This is going to be the harder part to kind of get to. And what you're going to need is a flathead screwdriver, a really small head on it. And right here in your mag release, you know how it's on a spring loaded? On this side of it, right here, there's a little Phillips, or I'm sorry, a flathead. So you're going to push down, turn it, let go. That simple. Now your mag release is out. Completely out. Just put it to the side as well. And voila, your trigger will just come sliding right out of there. Very simple like. See, it didn't take much to get it out. So let's go ahead and put the new one in. So we're going to take our puzzle trigger on this ring as well. Same concept. We took it out. So we're going to put it back in. But when you put it back in, there's a slant. You see this little pitch right here? There's a slant. We're going to make sure that that is pointed upwards, almost like climbing a hill there. Upwards with the direction of the grip. You don't want it like this. It's not going to work out. So like this. Slider slick in there. Right back into the trigger spot. Poof. Now we have a new trigger. And the same scenario from there. Now we're going to just do everything in reverse. We're going to take that mag release. Pressing forward on our trigger to make sure it stays there. Set that down there. And you remember that little flathead spot? We're going to take that same spot and just in reverse. Reach down there, grab it. Boom. Now our mag releases back in. Our trigger will not go anywhere. Now, when it comes to putting this back, this little rod for your hammer right here, you want to make sure that that hammer or this rod is actually pointing. You do not want it to hit on the inside of here. When you start putting this back, do not let it go on the inside of this. You want it to go on the outside of this. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and slide it back down, sit it here, sit it back on our frame, go ahead and put our grip screws back in. Super easy. There's one. Flip her over. And here's two. Applying pressure on the grip to make sure it's just in the spot it's supposed to be, sitting snug. Go ahead and screw this one down as well. Do not forget about your Phillips screw. That's going to go back into your trigger guard right here. We're going to apply that one back in. Really simple, look. Screw her down, make sure she's snug. Pow. So once we have that, now what we're going to end up doing is we're going to need this trigger, the shear spring. Now the shear spring, what it looks like this. All right, now this is actually pushed in a little bit, needs fixed really. I'll worry about that in a minute. But this hook that comes down here, that's going to go inside this little pocket. But you're going to want that under the hammer rod. So we're going to put it in there. Now this is going to be tricky too. Remember that video I pointed to a minute ago that you can say and go to, that double feeding issue? And you're gonna have that video. Need to watch that video if you don't do this correctly when you put it back. Now, I know it's hard to see. There's a couple things in here where these are gonna go. This one's gonna go on your hammer, and this is gonna go on your reset right here, this very end of it. So when you set it in here, you're gonna want this middle prong not to be under that hammer. You're gonna want it on top of that. If you have it under it, you're gonna have full auto issues. It's just your gun's just gonna shoot full auto. So you want it to be under it, and you want that last one right here to be on your reset. So take your time putting it back in. Do not force it, do not rush it. Make sure everything's lined up back in there correctly where it's supposed to be. Sitting it down snug in the housing, and go ahead and push some pressure on it, on your safety right there. So now you have it sitting in there. You're going to take your hammer spring, and slide it back down in here. And you're going to want that rod to line up with that hole. So if you have to release off the safety just a hair, just to kind of finesse it to get it to fall into place, just whatever you got to do, you're going to want that rod to fall right back in that hole. Oops. And boom. Make sure your safety's down. Boom, your hammer's back in. Take your pin, push your pin back in. Pow. And we're back in there. So once everything's back in the normal spot, you should have a regular firing pistol again. It's super simple. Make sure that you have everything lined up. This is one of the really important things I was talking about with that sear spring, and making sure it's in the right places. Now, technically, you're not going to know unless you take it back apart, or you know confidently that you put it on top of the hammer, not under the hammer release right there. Because if you do, and you start shooting it, and it goes in full auto, you know what you did wrong. Or if it's not shooting, then it means it's probably not set. Your third kind of finger over here out of the three is not on your release. And if it's not on your release correctly, then it won't do anything. It will not fire. It will not even lift a hammer. So, yeah. So, tell me what you think about that. Hopefully that worked out lovely. Hopefully it made it very simple. So I will try to give you some more little videos. That one's just really simple to do. Do not be scared to get inside these lowers. It's really hard to kind of mess something up, and that you got to really be trying to mess something up. When you start getting into the safety in your hammer and your beaver tail safety and all that stuff, it can be a little tricky. It can be if you don't know what you're doing at first. But man, I promise you, any one of y'all can take these things completely apart, upper and lower, like it's nothing. Just trust me. If you want to run these things and you want to know the ins and outs of your TM, just start playing with them. If you're not confident enough, then you can watch a few videos. Hopefully this one will help you a little bit on how to run them, how to get them going. I'll try to bring y'all a little bit more on some stuff. Maybe we'll talk about putting that hammer spring in, or maybe I'll break down the entire thing on putting a hammer in and installing it. We'll see. But I appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all in the next video, and yeah, you know what it is.